I've been reading all the letters that you wrote me, all the fairy tales you sold me, and all the pretty things you said. Can't stop thinking about the way that you control me, and now you wish you never known me. I wish you'd come and hold me, hold me.
It's Arin. I am here with Tony Lucca. So, I guess first of all, for people that don't know, how did your kind of start in music come about, and what's your career been like thus far?
Well, yeah, I came from a really big musical family. My mom was the 10th of 12 kids, and they all sang or played something. So just kind of grew up in music. Started playing in bands around age 11, 12. And then, when I was 14, I auditioned for the Mickey Mouse Club, and that whole chapter pretty much, was high school for me. I spent my high school years on TV working professionally, and really realizing that this was, not just what I want to do, but like what I'm gonna do. Like it was very clear early on that I had, a legitimate future in the entertainment business.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, and then I guess there was like a little break for a little while, and then The Voice was recent.
Yeah, I mean, there was a break as far as like the mainstream spotlight goes, for sure. I think sort of peaked out during the Mouse Club days, in Teen Beat magazine or something, like, okay, he's made it. But in between there, I went and did, I moved to LA after Mouse Club and started acting, doing some other, acting roles. Was on a NBC Arin Spelling show. Kind of kept me out there in that spotlight. But I realized early on that the acting wasn't where my heart was. I just didn't feel it. And like I knew eventually I was going to have to get back to making music, and at one point I had to kind of decide, like, all right, I'm not going to be the poster child for, typecast Hollywood quarterback, heartthrob guy. I mean, not that I'm complaining about that kind of thing, but it was getting old, and I didn't feel like I wanted it as bad as a lot of other actors did. Mm-hmm. So I just said, no, I'm gonna do the music thing, which was where my heart had always been. And I started making records. 1997 was the first year I put a record out. And so, yeah, even though the exposure wasn't there, that was where the hard work began, and that's where I really started to sort of cut my teeth on touring nationally and cultivating a fan base, building on the earlier fan base, but all through music, until, of course, The Voice.
Okay, so I guess when you got to that point, when you were on The Voice, what was it like, that whole chapter, I guess, of your life, and then now after having a little bit of a bigger reach with all the fans you got from that, and being able to do what you want on a little bit bigger level again?
Yeah, I decided to do The Voice because I thought, at the very least, I certainly didn't fantasize going as far as I did. I just didn't see that happening. But I thought at the very least I could hold my own for a little while. I might have enough fans out there to help vote me through a round or two. But at the very least I would get some exposure out of it. And I'd be able to sort of break through the ceiling that I had reached as an independent artist. And this tour right now is sort of proof that we had the desired effect. Because we've gone from playing for 75 to 125 people a night to 150 to 300 people a night, and that's great.
Yeah, someone that might, I mean, someone that doesn't really understand concerts might not understand how great of a jump that can be.
Yeah, I mean, for an independent guy, even though I've been at this as long as I've been at this, if I were to put a record out tomorrow through Adam Levine's label, now that I'm signed to him, if we were to put out a mainstream record that had his endorsement on it and it had a hit song on it and it went to radio and became number one, and next thing you know I'm nominated for a Grammy, it would be Best New Artist.
Yeah.
After all this
Even
time,
though it's been...
I'm still, I've been in the indie world. These kind of strides are noteworthy, and they feel really good, and it really, fuels what I'm doing, and there's legitimate income and a career as an independent artist. So it's been great.
Okay, cool. So I guess now that you've had some time to tour and you're on tour right now, what kind of comes next after, I guess, the end of this year, so the beginning of next year? What's the plan?
After this tour, I get into writing and pre-production mode for the album, and we'll probably start recording around the new year to hopefully have a record or a single at least by March, springtime, so that next summer I'm touring in an album cycle. I'm actually going to radio with a single, and the press and the PR and the media coverage is specific to that album.
Mm-hmm.
So right now, I mean, it's this is at best this is kind of just a victory lap tour.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of press and a lot of radio, but it's more so just, hey, we want to say congratulations, and I'm like, oh, well, I just want to say thanks. So I've been a lot of that, and having been on The Voice and the story that happened, and then on the heels of that, signing with Adam's label, that's sort of been that's taken the place of having a single at radio, and it's allowed for us to really make the most of the tour. But that I can't keep doing that.
Yeah.
Like that story runs its course. So now I need to pony up and make a great record, and then come back out, do it all over again with something specific to promote.
So when it comes to writing for you, how does the process usually work?
It usually starts with either a creative spark of lyric content, maybe a poem or something, a turn of phrase that I'll be like, oh, that's clever, and I'll start writing that. But mostly it starts with, sitting in a room with a guitar, or usually when I play someone else's guitar and just drum someone else's guitar, it just sounds different, and I find something cool to play, and then, a piece of music will inspire a mood or a thought or a sentiment, and then you start writing lyrics to it. There's never been one consistent way.
Yeah.
So I don't, it is a bit of a magical process that I've always been in awe of and grateful to be a part of. But the only consistent thing is that the more you write, the more you write. So there's a discipline element to it. You got to stick to it. You got to do it.
Okay, and I guess when it comes to co-writing, obviously you have to have a connection with the person you write with, but are there any artists that you've really enjoyed co-writing with, or that you'd want to co-write with?
Yeah, funny. I I got a chance to write with Richard Marx, who, when I was a kid, he was a big deal. He was huge, and he's written some really huge hits. And now he's comfortable, no longer being really in the spotlight as a mainstream pop artist, but he is totally in tune with what's going on in the music world, and is a great writer. It was a great hang. I had a lot of fun with him, and it just felt like, wow, I've kind of graduated to this level.
Yeah.
Like I'm sitting down with Richard Marx. That was pretty cool. Co-writing is a funny thing. It really is. It's like it's the equivalent of like changing in front of someone, like a total stranger, where you're just gonna like try on different clothes and in front of each other, and see what fits best, and not be embarrassed at the stuff that doesn't look good, or just being naked, because that's what you're doing. You're just spilling your, not only like your creative sentiments, but your your vulnerability of, you write something and it's cheesy, or you say something and that's pretty corny, that doesn't work, or maybe because you're constantly trying to find the best solution, what sounds the best, what works the best, what tells the story the best, and it's not for the weak at heart. You got to really be discerning. At the same time, you have to be open to criticism, and it's not always easy for egocentric artists like me.
So, I guess, has there been a moment when you were writing a song, or just in general, do you have a favorite song lyric that you've written?
I had one song that really connected to a lot of people, that as soon as I wrote it, I was like, wow, that's pretty clever, if I do say so. The refrain is, if I held my breath, you'd be the death of me. And it's a song about, coming clean with your lover or your partner and saying, you said you'd always love me, you said we would always be together, but, if I held my breath, you'd be the death of me, because I'd hold my breath until I died. So I just it has a clever ring to it. It was pretty to the point, and as a song, the structure of it is really concise, and like I said, it seemed to strike a chord with a lot of people, and it's probably one of a small handful of songs that a lot of people have come to know my music through. So I'm pretty proud of that one.
Okay, cool. And then I guess just with some of the different experiences that you've had the opportunity of having, what's one of the biggest life lessons, or even just lessons about the music industry, that you've learned through all of it?
I'd have to say the advice that Adam gave me on The Voice, that wasn't necessarily, it was abbreviated on the show, but the inspiration that I drew from the advice was more of conversations we had off camera. But he really showed me, explained to me the power of taking risks, and that you think back to the annals of rock icons. They did something risky at some point. They had to, and that really resonated with me, because committing your life to a career in music is a risk in itself. It's not a high reward investment necessarily. It's a tough field, but I would be the first to admit that I probably have played it relatively safe throughout my career. I was always a little too careful and calculated about things, both creatively and logistically with the choices I made, and realizing that maybe I just needed a little risk to spice things up, and that's really what happened on the show. Next thing you know, I'm covering Britney Spears, and I'm dancing with a couple of go-go dancers, and I'm singing a Jay-Z song. Never in a million years would I've imagined that happening, but it did. And it was all because of that conversation. So yeah, if it doesn't make you somewhat uncomfortable, it's probably not worth doing. And that's a that in and of itself is uncomfortable. That you have to come to terms with that. But it's true.
So I guess just looking forward, is there a specific goal you have, or something that you just really in the end you just want to have accomplished at least one thing? I don't know. I've had this fantasy about being on tour with my family. Two of us, with my wife and my kids and a tutor and a nanny. And just full on family road show, and
because I get to see the country. I get to see so much. I'm in a different city every day. I've been to so many museums and things that my kids have yet to see, and it's like, man, that's not right. They should be here taking all this in. I mean, of course, in my mind, that's something that they would want.
Yeah.
That they would want to experience the world, and who knows, they may get on the road and be like, I want to go home. You know, but in my head, I have this little perfect world of us living on the road, and it's kind of like camping.
Yeah.
You know, everyone has their bags and their stuff, and it's a family business at that point. You know, where you get your son changing strings on your guitar and your daughter running the merch. That would be awesome to me. That'd be really cool.
That'd be cool. And then, I guess just like one of the last things is when it comes to a live show, like, is there a specific moment on stage that you look forward to in every show? And even if you're having like a horrible day or things aren't going right, you know that like when you get to that moment, like it's gonna be your moment.
Yeah, we play this song called "Pretty Things," which is another one of my bigger tunes, and it's kind of like towards the tail end of the set, you know, and if we make it to that point, you know, that's where we're like, we've had a great show. It's kind of like the reprise, you know, of the whole night, and usually if I'm like tired or my voice is kind of, you know, not feeling it, that's the light at the end of the tunnel. It's like, okay, we're at the home stretch now, you know. But it's also the song that most people react to. We start playing it, and most nights everyone wants to sing along, and that feels incredible.
Very cool.
So.
And then, I guess just lastly, I mean, social media has become a huge part of the industry, and it was huge on The Voice, and just in general, it's a big part in letting people know where you are, letting people know what's up with music, and really establishing a little bit of a closer relationship with fans. So how do you kind of manage all that? Because I know it can be difficult.
Yeah, I've always tried to stay out in front of it. You know, TonyLucca.com. I've had my own domain since '98, which is pretty cool. That was kind of before a lot of things, you know. So I've always, you know, I really tried to optimize MySpace when it was happening. I jumped ship to Facebook with everyone else when that happened. But Twitter, I've been pretty diligent on there and have quite a few followers. And Instagram, it's hard to keep up with all of them, but, you know, certainly you always pay attention to where the bulk of the traffic is and really try to tap into it. So, you know, I have help. I have, you know, people, day-to-day management that make sure I'm not dropping the ball on updates and links to things as they become available. So social media is integral to an independent artist's career. So I've always taken pride in that as well.
This tour alone, we've done some really cool hospital visits to children's hospitals, and we've been in a Walter Reed medical facility, played songs for some guys right back from theater there, and it's a really cool thing because, you know, the reason it's called The Exchange is because, you know, we bring the gift of music, but what we get back from it is just beyond fulfilling, and it really is a beautiful exchange. You know, we're only up here for an hour and a half each night. There's a lot of hours in the day, mostly for traveling, but you know, then you're just waiting for the next hour and a half show. So this is kind of a cool thing to do. It's an incentive program that we're trying to put in place for other artists. But as well, we're starting a thing called the Extra Model, which is kind of taking these efforts abroad. And our friends from Louisiana have been starting some outreach work down in Guatemala. And we're doing our sort of maiden voyage. It's kind of an eco-tourism thing, but basically it's like a dozen or so music lovers and a host artist go down there and do really cool mission-style, service-based work during the day, some sweat equity, and then nightly house concerts and dinners with your favorite artist, and it's a really cool thing. So you can donate as little as $5 at the merch table if you're interested, and it automatically enters you in to win a trip to Guatemala for our maiden voyage in December, which is kind of coming up. It's a crazy time to travel, but if you're interested, please check it out at the merch table. Thank you guys for that. But suffice it to say, if you want to do something a little more tried and tested, of course, the Red Cross is is taking donations for Sandy relief, and I know there's no one here who's not affected by it somehow or another, so don't forget that. Please spread the word on Twitter and Facebook that you have donated to the Red Cross. It's a great